Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be talking about the Black Dagger Brotherhood Series by J.R. Ward. And also, as you can tell by the title of this video, I did not love this series. So I know the title is kind of harsh. I read the series so you don't have to, but honestly, that's just kind of how I feel. I wasted my time reading this series, and now you don't have to waste it. It's really strong. They're not that bad. But I would not recommend this series. So if you are considering this series, if it's on your kind of TBR list, I'm going to try to talk you out of it today. But before I give you guys my final thoughts, I do want to just kind of give you guys a summary of the books and then tell you guys why I feel the way I feel about them. All right, so let's jump right in. So as I said, before I talk about my feelings about the books, I will give you guys a little bit of background. So basically, I mean, obviously, as you guys know, if you've watched any of my videos, I love fantasy, romance, vampires, all of that kind of stuff. And this series kind of has all of that. So when I read about this series, I was like, oh my God, that's right up my alley. I'm going to love it. I've heard really good things about it from different people. So I actually went to Barnes & Noble's and bought the 3 first books of this series because I just assumed that I would like them, but I did not have such luck. So basically this series is called the Black Dagger Brotherhood Series, and it is about a brotherhood of like warrior vampires, and they kind of protect the vampire race from the enemy, which in this case is humans. So something that's actually really important to note here is that the vampires of this series in this world are different than like your typical Vampire Diaries Twilight vampire. They can procreate, so they can have children, and they go through this like vampire transition. So, you know, if a vampire has a baby with a human, that half-breed, if you will, vampire will grow up as a normal human would, and then around their like 25th birthday, they can go through this transition where they need to feed on vampire blood to basically like complete their transition. So they don't need to like die, they don't get bitten. And then also vampires in this world don't feed on humans, they feed on other vampires. So they're not really as big of a threat to like the human world as like, I guess, vampires who eat humans are. But they still like fight with the humans, or they fight with like the human group of warriors. Anyway, that's not important, but I just wanted to kind of quickly highlight the differences of like these vampires than like your average vampire. So in the series, each one of the books follows a different like brother of the brotherhood. So, you know, these are warrior vampires, right? So in our first one, we focus on the warrior Wrath, and the second one we have Rage, and they all kind of have those like, I don't know, names like that, where it's like Wrath, Rage, Sadist, Torment, things like that, where it's like, I guess it's like supposed to be clever, right? So as I said, our first book focuses on Wrath, and he is the leader of the Brotherhood, and he is the only purebred vampire left in like the world. So basically vampires and humans have crossbred and they've had a lot of babies, but his blood is pure vampire, and this is important to remember. So basically at the beginning of our first book, one of the brothers is murdered, but before he's murdered, he goes to Wrath and he says, you know, my half-bred daughter is coming up to her transition, and in order for her to have the best chance of surviving her transition is to drink Wrath's blood, because again, he is the only purebred left. So the purer his blood, the better will be for her transition, and she's more likely to survive her vampire transition. And at first Wrath is like, no, I want nothing to do with that, like that's not my job, I'm sorry, but like find someone else to do it, I don't want to get involved. But then he is killed and Wrath feels, shit, he died. His dying wish basically was for me to make sure his daughter survives the transition, so I'm actually gonna help, and I'm gonna try to get her through her transition. Then we have Beth, and she is, you know, the daughter of this warrior. She has no idea that she's about to go through this transition, and she's noticing kind of like these weird things happening to her body, but again, like she wasn't brought up with the knowledge that vampires exist, so she just thinks like, you know, she's just like growing up, she's hormonal or whatever. So that's a lot to say, because if I say any more, it gives away a lot. But basically, the instant love in this book is just too much. It's like, I don't like instant love, and like this is like top 3 worst instant loves I've ever seen. And even further on top of that, like the instant lust is also too much. So like I can get on board with some instant lust. You know, our main characters meet and they don't fall in love, but they're like, who's that? And they have a little whatever. I can get into that's, you know, whatever. They don't love each other immediately, but they're attracted to each other immediately. That is realistic. But this is just like, if someone were to sneak into your room one night, you have no idea who it is, you probably wouldn't, you know, give them a little right then and there, because that's kind of crazy. Like, he could be a serial killer there to kill you. You don't just invite him to your bed after he sneaks into. Anyway, I'm giving away a lot, so I want to stop. But basically, I was reading this and I was like, I'm sorry, why'd you think that was a good idea? Like, give me a little sexual tension, a little bit build up, like, you know, make it so that I want the characters to be together. Don't just put them together and they'd be like, oh, well, what? Anyway, apart from the love and the lust stuff, another reason that I didn't love this book, or I didn't really even like it, is that we don't really get a lot of like in-depth character building. You just don't like fall in love with the characters. And that's like one of my favorite parts about reading like longer series, is that you have the chance to really like get to know these characters. You know their flaws, you know their like good things about them, you know all of this stuff, and you just create like this bond kind of with them, if that makes sense. Like I always go back to A Court of Thorns and Roses, just bear with me here. But when my roommate was reading it, after she got to a certain part, she was like, resand, and I was like, resand. And it was like, you just like have this kind of like, you just like them, like they're real even though they're not. And for this, I was just like, who cares? So the main characters, side characters, the banter between our characters, just all around, So clearly I didn't like the first book. However, I didn't want to just kind of give up on the series and be like, I didn't like the whole series just because I didn't like the first book. I wanted to give it a full chance. So I did end up picking up the second book in the series, Lover Eternal, which focuses on another one of our warrior vampires, because each book focuses on a different person, and this book we focus on Rage. And Rage is described as the most beautiful like looking of the group. He's supposed to be like Hollywood beautiful with his like perfect blonde hair, like nice tan, blue eyes, and he's like, you know, supposed to be like really, really attractive. Okay, but he's also cursed. So basically he has this curse thrust upon him that turns him into like a literal beast. When he's angry, he transforms into like this monster. And on the other side in this book, we have our female protagonist, Mary, and she has been diagnosed with cancer, or she had cancer, and the cancer, she was in remission, and now the cancer has come back. So you can kind of guess what happens from there. They meet. Basically, Mary thinks this guy is gorgeous, and you know, he's supposed to be, and he's really nice to her. And then for some reason, that sounds really bad, she's pretty and she's all this stuff and she's great, but he has this weird obsession with her voice. And it's just like, that's really weird. Like, you know, maybe just, I don't mind that they like each other, but I don't get this voice thing. That's really weird. And so basically, again, with this like romance, I'm just like, I'm not invested, you know what I mean? So it's like, why am I gonna sit here and read 430 pages of a relationship that I don't care about? And as I said, the instant love in the first one is really bad, and I would say this one is honestly even worse. As I said, basically she speaks and he's in love with her, and because he has this thing for her voice, and it's just like, I don't even, like, I'm actually speechless because it's so ridiculous. And I like fantasy. I can get on board with vampires, werewolves, centaurs, fae, all this ridiculous stuff. And if I'm saying it's ridiculous, like, it's ridiculous. Basically, after reading the second book, I gave up on the series. As I showed you guys, I did buy the first 3 books, and I haven't even read the third one because I just, again, think it will be a waste of time, and I am making this video so that you guys don't even waste your time reading the first 2. I'm sorry, that's so mean, but like, they just weren't good. And like, there's so many good fantasy romance books. If you like fantasy, if you like romance, if you like vampires, if you like any of the stuff that kind of is in the story, there's so many better books out there that I would recommend over the series. And so yeah, that's kind of why I made this video. I don't really like to make videos about books I don't like because I think that's unnecessary, and like if I don't like a book I just won't talk about it. But for this I just felt like I just kind of wanted to tell you guys my honest thoughts. So yeah, I gave both of these books a 2 on Goodreads, and that is the lowest rating I've ever given on Goodreads. To this day, I just didn't like them. With that being said though, if you are looking for a really good fantasy romance book or series, there are a bunch of others that I would recommend, starting of course with ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. I talk about it all the time, so I'll shut up about it. But if you are looking for a good fantasy series, try A Court of Thorns and Roses out. I'd also recommend the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Third, I'd recommend the Fae Guardian series by Lana Petracek. I'm probably butchering her name. But that I've talked about in a different video, and I actually thought that was really good. And it also has a similar setup of each book follows a different main character, so it's very similar in the sense that, you know, Fae Guardians, they're these guardians of like the Fae realm, so you kind of have that similarity between those like warrior groups. And each book focuses on a different main character, and they're kind of figuring out what they're doing with their life, their romance, you know, their moment, their heroic moment. And I just thought that the Fae Guardian series was very similar, but just much, much better. The characters are much more interesting. The story is much more interesting. The romance is a little bit more believable. Yeah, it's just better. And the last series that I would recommend instead of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series is the Wraith Kings series by Grace Draven. Another series that I've talked about before, where it's just, again, if you're looking for a fantasy romance series, there's just better things out there. This one is a little bit less steamy, but it's still really good, and it, you know, has that intimacy if you're looking for that. So yeah, I would recommend all of those series over this one if you are looking for a good fantasy romance series. But that is all I have for today. I know this video is probably really short, but I kind of wanted to just get my thoughts out there. If it's helpful to someone, then that's great. If it's not, oh well. But that is all I have for today. Please like this video. Please subscribe if you are not already, because it really supports my channel. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!